Hello and welcome along to another edition of the Left Wing Back podcast with me, Kevin Regan. We're on to episode 5 of the My Time in the Geansaí series, and today our conversation features a sharpshooter from Eire Og. He's a man who used to shoot the lights out for Carlow. He started off the year as a selector with the Carlow senior football team, and in 2017 and 2018 he completely transformed his game as a finisher to become a key figure in the modern day half forward role with Eire Og. Simon Rea is today's guest. We'll venture into many topics in this one. Among those are the good times as Carlow's ace forward, missing out on Eire Og's run to the 2019 Leinster Club Final, and we also chat about stories of a personal nature which Simon bravely opens up about publicly for the first time. Today's episode is kindly brought to you in association with Corcoran Precast Tanks. Simon, great to have you on the show. It's a while since we spoke. How's things with you?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for having me. We're living in obviously strange times at the moment, Kevin, but trying to keep the spirits up, and all is good at home here.
Good stuff. So, the kind of the nature of this podcast is to talk about your time in the Geansaí, I suppose, county primarily. You also enjoyed a lot of success with Eire Og, but first we'd like to go back to where you actually kind of got interested in football. Now, I know there's great heritage and there's great history in your family, linking all the way back to the Carlow team in '44 that won Leinster. Maybe talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, obviously, my grandfather, Simon Rea, was on that team, corner forward, a kit hog like myself. So, it's great to have that tradition. Never got to meet him personally. He actually passed away in November '72, but heard lots of great stories about football back then and that time. And Brendan Hayden would have filled me in a lot of stories that down through the years. Obviously, my dad as well. Obviously that tradition was there within the family, and it was nice to be able to go on and play for Carlow and also play interprovincially as well. My grandfather lined out in Rail Cup as well for many a year, and I got that opportunity. I was lucky to do that as well. So that was nice. So
football was always number one then in the family, I take it. Now, I know you have a big love of soccer as well, so where did that tie in?
Football, I was introduced probably at an early age. I grew up in Eire Og estate in Carlow, and I remember my dad bringing me over when he was 5 to Eire Og. It was 50p the membership at the time. Nocky was on the gates. He's still there at the moment. Over to the what a man, great club servant. And over to the old prefabs used to be there. And that was my earliest introduction to it. I had a love for soccer, don't get me wrong, and I really enjoyed playing it. Played loads of soccer underage, but always preferred the GA. There was a much more family community feel to it. Probably always been a tighter knit, I personally felt myself. So that's probably why I lean towards the GA probably more than the soccer down through the years.
Right, so Eire Og obviously had a huge amount of success in the 90s. And I know within that generation that we spoke with in between, like your dad and your uncle and stuff, they were big men, obviously going back 70s and 80s. But for you personally, you were probably, I'd say, 10 or 11 years of age when Eire Og started winning Leinsters in the 90s. That obviously played a huge part on your career as well.
Oh, it did. Them days out were incredible, and we were lucky enough to be brought along to them as well. I mean, there's been some great club people, unbelievable club people. Bollum Hogan, Jimmy Byrne, my uncle Tom, Andy Ellis, Eamon Ellis. They've all had a huge impact on me, or coached me up along the way. But that team itself, obviously, there's. What more can be said about them? It was an incredible time for the club and for County Carlow as well, because people from all over Carlow got behind them. And them days out are something that you'll always remember. Pity we didn't close the deal in the 2 chances we had in the All-Ireland, but they were desperately unlucky for one of them anyway. But then players like Brendan Hayden, Jody Morrissey, Jimmy Dooley, John Kearns, Hughie Brennan, Willie Quinlan. You could go down through them all. You can name them all off the top of your head. Garvin Ware, they obviously did, and I was lucky enough then to come on the back end and get to play with a lot of those guys. and they left their kind of imprint on you and what's expected of to win and going forward. But not only that, a tradition playing with Eire Og as well, you know.
Good stuff. Was there a player in particular that you kind of modelled yourself on? I know Paul McCarthy was a great left-footed free taker. He's sadly no longer with us, but is he someone you look to? Because I see similarities in how both you kind of played. He was left-footed as well.
Yeah, Paul was a really, really good footballer, and he'd a sweet left foot on him. He was a good man to take a free off the ground as well. And that's probably where the similarity is with us. I always kind of, the free taking side of it, probably based myself a little bit more on Muckle, in terms of Muckle had this really nice relaxed technique kind of running up to the ball, and actually who introduced me to taking frees, and I named him early on there, was actually Bonham Hogan. From a young age, actually, he always told me to put the Neil's facing you and the Val facing forward and pick your spot and just make good contact with the ball. And I still use that to kind of this day whenever I'm putting the ball down. It's something probably I've used a good bit of. Yeah, it's mad when you think of these things, and it's only when you have time to reflect on them and you realise how much of an input something as small as that, someone introducing you to that, and how much you've used it over the time. Yeah, look, I think you can take a bit from everybody if you're trying to kind of mold yourself. But at the end of the day, you're you, so you want to bring something that's a little bit more different and unique to it, and that's the most important thing. And have a bit of drive and self-application and hunger to want to try and get to the top, or as best you can at your own level, you know.
No different to a lot of Eire Og players that are currently playing senior, that they've enjoyed underage success. Memories of minor finals, coaches over those teams, things like that, influences?
Yeah, look, minor finals, we some great tussles with Tinryland, unbelievable tussles with Tinryland. Coaches at the time back then as well, Turlough and Tommy, two great men that are still going up until this day. They've given a lifetime to the GA, both of them, and two great characters as well. But they were over the team back around that time, and we were lucky, really, really lucky to come out one or two of them finals against Tinryland. Like, Tinryland had a serious team back then, and I think 98, 99, we were blessed to come out one or two of them, a couple of late goals deciding them, and they were great times. Football was really, really competitive, and you always remember them waiting for the senior final. After, I think it could have been 99 that we won and the seniors lost. That was the first time the Blues, that great Blues team that was coming back around them, had beaten them. But I've been lucky to be a part of a couple of doubles where the seniors have won on the same time, and we've enjoyed that too, like, you know.
Absolutely. Tommy Wogan, as you mentioned there, was over the Carlow minor footballers. I think it was the year 2000 when you beat Kildare. That was a fantastic victory. And of course, the late great Jim Minchin, who passed away sadly recently, was a selector.
That's correct. An absolute gentleman. Yeah, gentleman Jim was. A really nice character, always in good form. And it's sad to hear of his passing recently there. But that's right, Tommy. We had a great day. I think could have been up in Newbridge, if I'm not wrong. We bet them in their own backyard, I think, Kevin. Maybe you might correct me.
Yeah, no, you're 100%.
Yeah, but with some good players on that team as well. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Willie Hickey, I think John Cody. There were some really good lads, and they're not from football clubs as such, as they're more hurling traditional background. But Tommy brought together a nice mix of lads, and everybody kind of bought into it at the time. And I think the next day out didn't go. We were a lot of talk that we might take that Laois team, and we probably, when we went out, we just didn't perform in Dr. Cullen. There was an expectation of us to go out and perform, and things didn't go our way, which was a little bit disappointing because we were probably better than that, and it just didn't work out on the day. But that happens in sport, you know.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was kind of to become a team of things during your time with the seniors as well. So kind of talk to us about the transition of underage county to senior then. Who gave you your big break? What was the year? What was it like going into the setup?
I was kind of playing. I think it was around 2002, and I think myself and Thomas Walsh were both with the 21s at the time, and I might have been around 19. But Pat Rowe had brought us both up, I think, to the senior panel at the time. Now I didn't play, but Tom played, and then I think then Pat. That was the year I think Carlow won the Burn Cup that year. And basically after, I think that was Pat's last year in charge of the team, and then Mixer Condon took over at the time then, and I kind of took off from kind of 02, 03 there, I think up until 2011. But I probably always struggled coming up through Eire Og. We had a great tradition of winning, and I've been lucky enough to win right through up along, and I always struggled kind of coming in because with Carlow we probably lacked a bit of ambition at that time. There was some serious talent around, but we'd always perform in one-off games, but we'd never consistently put it together, and that was kind of quite frustrating. When you go down through the players that were available at the time, like your Brian Farrells and your Joe Burns and Johnny Nevins, Mark Carpenter, Brian Kelly's, Brian Carberry's. Like, there's some serious talent, but we just never kind of got it together and clicked. I don't know whether that was a management thing or a player thing. Maybe the right guy didn't come along at the right time to ingest that belief in us,
So when you kind of came on the senior team first, it seemed like a seamless enough transition in that you were playing corner forward, you were racking up big scores, but yet you were still only under 21. So you took to it kind of like a duck to water.
I suppose I kind of, again, you had a bit of confidence in your own belief, and you were probably training really hard at that time as well. You're buoyed by the fact that you've got this break and you're lucky and you're delighted to go on and represent your county at senior level. And I remember actually my senior league debut was in Dr. Cullen Park against Longford on a kind of a miserable day. I think they ended up beating us 3-13 to something like 11 or 12 points at the day, but I got a right few points, and kind of the confidence kind of carried on from there. And you just want more of it then, once you're in there, you just want to be, you want more games, you want to be playing regularly, and that kind of really took off from there. But it was easy too, because as I said to you, alluded to, there's some really good lads around you, like Mark Carpenter, Johnny Nevin, Sean Kavanagh was around back then as well. All these guys had huge experience. They were kind of looking out for you, and you were only this kind of young lad coming on the scene. So it was probably easy fit into that transition when you had that experience and the team behind you.
The game against Westmeath in Croke Park in 2003, I think Willie Minchin actually got a goal on the day. Was that your first appearance in Croke Park, and what's your memories of it?
Yeah, it was. That was me. That was my first appearance in Croke Park. That was, I think that game they won. I think it might have finished up 117 to 112. Willie might have got a late goal for us to put the gloss on it first. It was just an incredible feeling to go out into Croke Park. You're going out into this big, massive arena, and the pitch is obviously like a carpet. And listen, it's probably everybody's dream in their county, no matter what to say, to go out and play a game in Croke Park. And for it to come quite early, I was very, very lucky. So I was in my time. Another reason I remember that game, it's probably the first and only game my mother ever seen me play. My mum never goes to any of the games, very rarely listens to the radio or anything like that. But she was actually sitting very close to Bobby Miller, Lord rest his soul, that day, and I never forget the screams of. She actually left at half time, so she did. She got a bit of a panic attack. She won't like me saying it, but I remember Bobby telling me the story, and it was actually funny. So I remember that game all right, yeah.
So the reason she didn't go to games, obviously just a bit fearful that you might get hurt or something, I take it, is it?
Yeah, that was the reason. It was always she was always a bit fearful, and it was always funny if we were going out to play the Blues. She said, "Oh, Be careful there now. Be careful. Them lads are big and tough and strong, and she wasn't lying either. Or Rathvilly, like they were probably the two teams she probably feared the most when we were going out to play against. And but that was just probably a mother and looking after her boy. But yeah, she never went to any of the games, which was funny. But I always have a laugh about her now and have a bit of a skit and a joke with her, But yeah, that was 2003, and. I think after we lost that game, I think we could have played. Did we play down in the qualifiers that year? Maybe that was the following year. I think in around that time as well.
Yeah. So the following year, obviously, there's a little bit going on behind the scenes in that Mick Condon was obviously there, and the funny thing about this is you beat Dublin. I'm almost certain you beat Dublin in around that time. And I was doing a wee bit of homework on this. He beat them in the O'Byrne Cup, obviously, we're talking about here. Going down to the Dublin team, I see names like Stephen Cluxon, Paddy Christie, Paul Griffin, Shane Ryan, Coleman Goggins, Darren McGee, Kieran Whelan, Senan Connell, Brian Cullen, Ray Cosgrove, Darren Holman, and Jason Sherlock.
Sherlock, yeah.
O'Byrne Cup or no O'Byrne Cup, that was a serious enough Dublin team to be beaten, regardless of what time of the year it was.
It was, and it actually was a great day in Dr. Cullen Park that day. I think the scoreline might have been 2-8, 13 or 2-9 to 40, something like that anyway. And I think Mixer might have made two changes. Myself and Brian might have been on the bench, and we came on at half time. And I think we got both the goals that day. I could be wrong though, but I'm nearly sure that's right. But it was some win, and I'll never forget the press lining up for Tommy Lyons after the game. Actually, I had to wait for ages outside the dressing room because he had a face like thunder. But that was a very strong Dublin team. That was an extremely strong Dublin team. But it just goes to show you, in games like that, we could perform, and the players were there to perform, but we never consistently did it. And it goes back to probably whether people look at management, they look at players, they look at this, that. There's always obvious reasons, but if you have the right person that's able to come in and gel a group of players together, a bit like what Turlough and Stephen Poacher's done with the guys over the last couple of years, like you look at that team with envy because what they went on and achieved something for Carlow, and you're kind of saying that team back then I thought was good enough to get out of a division. I think it was Division 2A and 2B back then. And we great one-off results like that in and around that time, Kevin, but nothing actually, as I said, consistently, and that's probably disappointing, because the level of players that was available to us then, we should have definitely got more of it,
Was that the wildest year you ever had in the county jersey, seeing as, despite being in charge of a team that beats Dublin, Mixer gets the boot a few weeks later after a league game above in Donegal? I know there was a bit of a piss-up involved there, and we spoke to Paul Kelly on the podcast about it briefly. That must have been a very, very strange time, but memories, no doubt, regardless of how good or how bad they are.
Yeah, look, I was young too, and there was obviously a couple of things that happened and a couple of things went wrong, and Donegal was mad because, again, it's going back to probably you'd never hear them things happening now ever again, probably, of what went on up there and stuff like that. And I felt sorry for Mixer in a way, because he actually wasn't. He was a decent person, and I think he had the right ideas. But obviously what happened up there probably wasn't good enough as well. And a couple of lads seen that too and said, well, here, we're not standing for it, But it can be, I understand now looking back, it can be kind of quite unnerving when you're sitting in a dressing room and lads are asking their opinion. We kind of need to move things on here, and we need to, we're looking to get rid of this person. And it's difficult to kind of, because you're only young and maybe you don't feel like your opinion counts, or maybe you don't feel that you have any say in the matter, that it's maybe up to the more senior group of players at the time. Do you know what I'm saying to you? And obviously too, a certain amount of responsibility has to rest with players as well, But because probably management were part of that debacle too, I think lads probably felt that we needed to change it,
Can I be cheeky and ask if you voted in favour or against?
Being honest, I actually don't remember. I probably obviously would have went with the group, Kevin. That's being genuine with you. I remember being in the dressing room on the outside pitch, and obviously we had our players meeting beforehand, and Mixer was outside, and then the players relayed the message to him at the time. So like, probably just would have went along with it. As I said to you, it's part of being, I think it might have been 20 or 21 at the time, and you're kind of just saying, look, yeah, if this is what, some of the senior lads are saying, well then, you're standing behind them. Do you know what I'm saying to you? It's quite difficult for a younger player to stand up and maybe articulate what they want to say and stand up for something. But, hindsight's a great thing. But I actually felt Mixer was actually a decent person. He was a decent person, to be fair.
Yeah, I sense that you feel a bit sorry for him about how it kind of ended up like.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? It's not nice really, I suppose, if you think of the person at the other end.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Because, he had come in, I had probably got me opportunity under him as well, and he had taken to me, and he had a bit of confidence in me, and I was buying into that confidence, and so you obviously have a bit of loyalty to a manager when that's the case. But then again, it's going back to the whole thing of being, you're very young at the time, and you obviously you're looking, and there's more experienced leaders and players in the dressing room, and you think they know better, and most of the time they do. But it obviously turned out. I think Johnny Nevin took training for a period of time back then, before I think Luke came in then. And that led to that we had a great day out, I think, against Longford in the championship. And then the following day, we were in a packed Dr. Cullen Park against I think there might have been the rain. Were Laois Leinster champions coming into place?
They were indeed, yeah. And you'd scored 2 goals against Longford as well, just to give yourself a bit of credit for that. I know you're modest enough going.
No. Actually, funny enough, I was thinking about that, and I never forget it, actually, because I think they came probably close to the end of the game. I think that game was a mad game. It was 4-15 to 1-16 or something like that. It was a mad game. But I always remember Mark Carpenter, so hard to get a pass off him, but I never forget, he got fouled for the penalty, I think, and it might have been him, or it might have been Joe Byrne got fouled for it. Anyway, put the penalty away, and then Mark was coming through, and lo and behold, he fisted the ball across to me, and I palmed it into an empty net, and I went off celebrating on my own, and Mark still gives me grief to this day about going off celebrating on my own without celebrating with him. So it's I'll never forget that. It's a bit of crack though between the two of us, because he never ever passed the ball to me after that again.
Yeah, despite the fact that you actually got the goal. But anyway, let's talk Laois then. So that was I was talking to Paul Kelly about this as well. It was an amazing day. I didn't know whether it was the fact that I was just 13 or 14, and it seemed like there were so many people there, or the fact that, because having been at the Tyrone and Monaghan games in recent years, they were obviously large crowds. But Paul assures me that he has never seen a crowd like that in Netwatch Cullen Park, and it must have been a fantastic day to be a part of.
There was no question that the crowd in Dr. Cullen Park that day was probably, you put the Monaghan and the Tyrone attendance together, and I don't think they would have came to what was in Dr. Cullen that day. There might be a clip or two on that you might be able to see. And the crowds were huge, absolutely huge, and we gave a really, really good account of ourselves that day, and probably with a little bit more belief, and we could have been better up front that day as well. We myself especially, I 2 or 3 shots. Rush shots where you think you're under pressure, but you're probably not. You have a little bit more time, and it's just having a little bit more being relaxed and assessing the situation. Mark the same. Mark had a couple of efforts that day too that he probably look back on and say, where's the difference? The couple of efforts that they got, they took their scores, and they always kept their noses just ahead of us. But it was close going in. I think there was only a couple of points in it at the half time. It might have been like 7 points to 1-2 at half time, and I think it finished up 15 to 1-8 in the end. I think they won by 4 or 5. They kicked a couple of lovely scores at the end of the game to kind of pull away. But that's a game that we look back on, and you'd be saying that, we could have actually overturned the Leinster champions that day. I remember we were very close, and Mark Carpenter's going through on goal. It just goes to show you the difference. Joe Higgins foot trips him, and he takes one for the team. Just a little bit of cynicism at the right time. And whereas we probably, again, it goes back to being a bit naive. But we had a good team. We had a really good team back then. I think, like, that team, you had, again, Sean Kavanagh, Johnny Nevin, Johnny Kavanagh from your own Loughlin Bridge. You had, I think, Barry English might have been playing, Sausage, Thomas Walsh, Skiock. There's some really good players back then, and that stood up to that Laois team. Laois had great players as well, obviously. Bino, Ross Munley, who's still going to this day, credit to him. Colin Parkinson, obviously, he got a couple of scores that day as well. Noel Garvin, Joe Higgins, Tom Kelly. So they had obviously serious pedigree as well, but we more than matched them on that day. And as I said to you, when we look back on it, it's probably one that I always think back to say that it probably disappointed me that I didn't perform on the day. But that happens. As I said to you, I didn't go out to do that, but it just does happen. Sometimes the game just doesn't go for you, and you learn from it.
A couple of great days in 2005. Obviously, the victory over Offaly stands out a mile, but that day in Croke Park, again, is probably similar to the Laois game in that it might be one that got away. But I remember it being a cracking game against Wexford. 3-12 to 2-10 possibly finished up, and I know you were one of the goal scorers that day as well. How did that compare to your first appearance in Croke Park? Were you a little bit more relaxed that time and felt like you could maybe let loose?
Yeah, I was definitely. There's no question about it. And you're obviously, you have a couple of more years under your belt, inter-county, and you're kind of growing and you're developing. You're getting a bit physically stronger as well. So definitely it was. That was a mad game. I think we were something like 3-3 to 4 points down in that game. After maybe 15 minutes, and I think, if memory serves me correctly, I think Richie Sinek had sent off the same day as well. I think we were really up against it, but midway through the second half we got a penalty and we scored, and we get back level into the game and just ran out of steam. I think Matty Ford might have kicked 3 or 4 out of the last 5 points, and they just pull away at the end. But another great experience in terms of getting to play in Croke Park, and because that's what it's all about. And the gas thing about it is some guys might go their whole of their career and not get the opportunity to play in Croke Park. I mean, it was only a couple of years ago Leitrim hadn't played there in I don't know how long, and they got to play Division 4 final there, wasn't it, against Derry, and them lads getting the opportunity, and no different than ourselves. It's an unbelievable venue, and you can't get over when you're standing in it, and it can be quite deceiving if you haven't played in it. I always found shooting down into the canal end, it can be quite deceiving, just when you're shooting into that end. It's always a little bit further away than you think.
Right, so fantastic victory over Offaly. Carpenter nails one late on, and it was a victory that was well deserved for the efforts that Liam Hayes put in. I'm going to skip on to the following year, if that's all right, because I know this was Hayes' second year, and I'm going to talk to you about Hayes in a bit more detail as well. But a victory over Wicklow, I think, below in Wexford Park. You were in the full forward line with Alan Kelly as well, and was there possibly 3 left-footed guys in the full forward line? Was Carberry there as well?
I think you could be right. I think it was myself, Alan Kelly, and Brian Carberry. And I think we all could have got a goal that day as well. We played
great day.
We played Wicklow, in Wexford Park, and one of the reasons to remember that is Wicklow had the music thumping before the game, and it was a bit like, we'll show these lads, that kind of way. And I could have finished up, I think it was 4-9 to 12 points or something like that, or it might have been a bit more. But I think Tom Welch might have got a cracker of a goal that day as well. Playing for Carlow, not Wicklow, by the way. So, that was Liam Hayes was obviously the manager at that time, and he was obviously very meticulous and big into his planning, and that probably came from the business side of him as well. But after that, I think we go on and play Laois in Portlaoise. I think we get a bit of a reality check against them. I think they gave us a bit of a trounce in that day, to be honest with you.
But what is it about Laois that they seem to have Carlow's number every time? What is the story like?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one. I've spoken to a lot of people about this before, because I know myself personally from going to play any club team in Laois, from time playing with Eire Og, like there's never any fear, and we've played Portlaoise regularly in challenge games and always put it up to them and stuff like that. And it's gas when you go out and you line up then and with an inter-county Carlow v Laois. It's nearly like there's an inferiority thing there, and it goes back to, again, it's probably mindset, and it's just having that belief and confidence. But as well as that, Laois have always felt that they've had the upper hand in Carlow, and that's probably in their thing too. And it's a tradition thing too. It goes that's why it goes back that far. And until you break that cycle, maybe 3 or 4 times consistently, and you start to say, well, we have the upper hand now. And we've probably never got the upper hand over that time. And until we do, that's probably going to be there with certain teams going out to play, Kevin, you know. And it's funny the way, you know, we could be, like, I always remember down through the years, and go back to playing against the Blues, like, we could be going fantastically well and they could be going terrible, and you go up and play them and they'd overturn you. And it's just them games, you know, that you have to overturn and say, right, okay, we've got the better of this team today. And until we kind of break that cycle, and look, we've come very close, and we've won, again, one-off games, and might have won in a Burren Cup game here or there, but we probably haven't done it when it's mattered, and that's been disappointing. And even going back to a couple of years ago, Carlow had Laois's number a couple of years ago in them 3 games that they played, and that's obviously something that'll live with them guys. When they reflect and they look back on them 3 games, they probably should have won 2 of the 3 of them, definitely, anyway. And it's extremely disappointing because you're going up there with a hope. Like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I was going up there, I was convinced that we actually were going to do it. But we let them off the hook in that league game in Dr. Cullen Park. Should have won that, and they should never got to the Division 4 final back then, and we wouldn't have had to play them in it, and we might have been meeting someone else and probably beating them. But and even the league final, again, I think we should have won that. Laois deserved to win the Leinster semi-final. I just think we hadn't learned from the previous 2 games, and we kind of did the same thing, expecting a different result, and it didn't happen. So, but until we kind of get over them a couple of times, or it's going to maybe take a new crop of guys to come along that have no inferiority to them, or, you know, they don't worry about it. That's what's going to need to happen, probably.
Right, so this is probably a good time. You mentioned the Blues there, so let's go back to the 2005 club final then, when Tommy and Turlough were obviously over E, and there was a change in the guard prior to this, because Eire Og had obviously been the team of the 90s, no doubt about that, won 5 Leinsters. The Blues came along and won their Leinster, and then they had Eire Og's number for a little while. Then that 2005 final seems to be a real turning point. We're talking about Carlow and Laois here, and I'm not going to say, like, Eire Og believe they're 4 or 5 points up before, you know, and they're going to beat anyone. That's just from the outside in how it seems, right? Yeah. So on that day against the Blues were going to come at you hard. And I know from talking to Tommy Wogan, he said one of the big things on that day was to hit them hard physically. It seemed to work fairly well. It was a miserable wet day, but you won the game and it was a real battle. Yeah,
that was probably one of the most physical teams I've ever played against. They were big. Ken Kavanagh, Breffney Hannon, Ken Walker, Pa Kavanagh, Anthony Kavanagh, Mark Carpenter, Philip Nolan. You know, you could go down through all of them. Like, they were all big, and they were strong as well. And we were underdogs. There's no getting away from it. Like, that Blues team had only won the Leinster, and they were probably starting to come into a really kind of peak. And I don't think anyone really expected us to win that day. And people might have looked at the weather and said, Jesus, this is Blues home and hose, because it was often looked upon Eire Og play better football on a drier day and stuff. And we had a really, really young team. Going back to the kind of that 99, 2000 area, Turlough and Tommy over the minors, and a lot of us had come through. The likes of myself and Alan O'Brien and Daniel Walker and Bernard Hennessy and Tommy Dowling and Christy Bulger. So a lot of us, Vinnie Kavanagh, we'd all come through up with the boys. So the lads knew, but we trained seriously hard that year, and we were prepared for it. We were training sessions in the lead up to that final were unbelievable, and it was just there was rows every night, in a good way. But you could feel that Turlough was letting everything go, because we needed to be at that area that we were ready for it. It wasn't that we were expecting it. We knew it was coming, so just accept it and move on. And obviously a big thing was we went to go out and set the tone, and Cormac McCarthy set the tone very early in that day. But himself and Carpenter had a tussle, and Carpenter ended up on his backside, and probably Cormac might have been lucky to this day that he mightn't have got sent off, but Pat Keogh, I think, was the referee. It probably went in our favour, and the rest is history, as they say. I think we scraped out 7-6, I think, and that kind of gave us a belief then going forward. And I think we won 2 out of the next 3 then leading into that. And that Blues team then probably they didn't actually, that probably affected them more, because they didn't really kind of probably recover from that. After so it was a big turning point for us, because we hadn't won one since 98, 99, and I remember coming on in 2001 and saying, "Jesus, you're expecting success because the club has after been so successful," and then we went 4 or 5 years without winning one till we won our first.
The Blues actually didn't contest the senior final since 2005, which is mad considering the amount of talent, as you already said, they had at that time. For you guys, you played PAL in both 2007 and 2008, and you won both those. Couple of replays in there, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
That's correct. We were extremely lucky on both days to get replays. I got a free in the last minute in the first game in 2007, and then we won the replay convincingly enough, I think. And in 2008, Alan Curran kicked a free kind of into injury time to get the replay, and we...
Can you remember kicking that free in 2007, Simon?
I can, yeah, because Scott was actually giving me a bit of verbal. First and foremost, he was giving out to me for diving, for winning the free, and I wouldn't say I dived, but I more so kind of was clever enough in terms of knowing exactly where the defender was in position in my body, which all good forwards do, Kevin.
Absolutely.
And Scott was handy at it himself. I would, I do remember, because it's little things like that kind of stay with you, but you kind of, you don't feel any pressure, because you're used to doing it. There's a responsibility on you, because you're the free taker and you've practiced it, so you just go through your routine and you're trusted. And look, thankfully it went over and we got another opportunity. In hindsight, you missed that. You don't know what effect it has on you. That kind of way. So, but it
could destroy you as a player, not just losing that final, but that could have set you back a serious amount. And it's mad the way that didn't even become a thought in your mind as you're stepping up to kick it, and how significant it was.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because I think, yeah.
Because if it does, you wouldn't be taking frees in the first place, as you.
That's it. And that's the number one thing that you have to understand as a free taker. There's a huge amount of responsibility, trusted on you to take the frees, and obviously you have to put the work in, and I know because I used to put the work in. So as I said to you, stuff like that is kind of second nature, and once you know your routine and your technique, you should be pretty confident when you're standing over that free, and you try to block out that stuff. I do remember Scott kind of giving me a bit of jip or ease, but you have a bit of a laugh to this day about it anyway, so
he knew how you won the free, and it takes one to know one, I suppose.
It does, yeah, it does, surely does.
So you had a pretty good run, I think, in 08 in Leinster when you got to the semi-final against Road, and that Road team was unbelievable. I remember a goal they scored that day, which I think is on YouTube.
Brilliant
fantastic
goal,
team, fantastic goal. They did. Unfortunately, they blew you away, but you had a queer good run leading up to that. Like,
yeah, we did. And the disappointing thing about that is I think we were actually been on the road for 8 weeks in a row. We went to a replay with the Longford champs. I picked up a serious injury in the first day against the Longford champions in that drawing game in Dr. Cullen Park. I did dislocation and a broken collarbone, so dislocated shoulder and broken collarbone, so I was out for a long time. AC joint had a rupture in it as well, so it took me probably 7 or 8 months to kind of get back after that game. But Road caught us. They gave us a bit of a tonkin. I think it might have been 3-8 to 5 or 6 points, and it was disappointing because I think that was a Leinster semi-final, I think. So it was disappointing looking in. I felt sorry for the lads, but there was definitely a level of fatigue. They were coming off a little bit fresher, and we were after being on the go flat out, and a couple of injuries were starting to creep in as well, obviously. But no excuses either. Like, they were like that team. Pascal Keelan, Alan McNamee, Niall McNamee, like, there's some serious talent in that team as well. So again though, we always had that belief when we got over Carlow that we could go on and do something, and we've always tended to look that way. And again, that goes back to what I'm talking about, tradition, that, you know, because Eire Og set that tone in the 90s, we had a belief coming up through us, or it was instilled in us, that look beyond your county. When you do win it, there's an opportunity there to go and achieve something. And we always had that about us, and we were always disappointed when it didn't work out for us, because all we wanted to do was try and create our own little bit of history, looking back at the lads that had gone before us. And we had a link obviously with Brian Carberry and Bernard Hennessy from that team, and they were good lads to have from an experience point of view as well, kind of bringing us along, you know.
So one of your own was kind of factor in your undoing between 2008 and 2012, because Joe Murphy obviously took over All Auckland. They reached 3 county finals. I think on a couple of occasions beat Eire Og on the way. You came back and won one then in 2012. Now, am I right in saying that you had hamstring injuries for a long time as well, that you struggled to kind of rectify?
Yeah, hamstring injuries, like the shoulder was a bad one, and I had a serious hamstring injury as well. The shoulder took me probably a little bit longer to recover for than I actually knew, because it's a confidence thing getting back and just trusting again going into the tackle, and that can kind of have a knock-on effect. Do you know what I'm saying to you? With you, in terms of when you're out in the field and you're like, you really want to go for the ball, and you're kind of like, this shoulder right, you know, that kind of way. And it took me a little bit of time, but I'd done an awful lot of work in the gym, and probably put on a little bit too much at the time, upper body, and it takes you a little bit of time then to kind of get back down, because you kind of come a little bit more bulky, and you did, like, that was the norm back then anyway, back during the 90s. A lot of teams were kind of bulking up, I suppose, and getting bigger and stronger, whereas now it's kind of leaner and faster. So it took me a little bit of time to kind of get that right, and to trust again. But the hamstrings started to creep in, and they were just, like, psychologically, it's difficult to describe, you know, when you keep recurring getting the same thing, because once you know then that you're trying to hit top speed, there's always the doubt in your head that, oh, is this going to go on me? And they took a longer time to get over, probably. And also I was going through, like 2010, obviously the birth of our daughter Sophia, and I probably enjoyed a little bit of time away, and I was going through a couple of other things with anxiety and stuff like that as well. So that kind of probably crept into, I wasn't fully invested in football from kind of 11, you know, for a couple of years, and Carlow got me back involved in 2012, and we won the championship that year. And Carlow has a funny story, actually. I was training one night, and we were doing very, very long sprints. Well, they seemed like they were going on for long anyway, but I ended up on the ground, like, literally thought I was having a heart attack. It was actually a panic attack, and he still talks to that to this day. He got a horror fry, so he was absolutely. You could see his face. He said he never the look of me on the ground, but it was just a panic attack, and I've struggled with them for a good few years, and it's interesting when you look back on it now and you realise, and once you get in control of them, that's all they are, and they'll pass, and it's football obviously helped me because it just kind of relaxes you. You're getting out there, and I was glad that Carlow got me back involved in 2012 then, and I then started. Obviously, we went 2012, and we went from. You might tell me there. Then we lost. I think we lost a couple of. We might have lost a semi-final or two, and then we ended up being back in 16 and 17, I think.
Yeah. So, I hope you don't mind me kind of delving into this, but you mentioned the anxiety and the panic attacks. You never strike me as that type of person. You seem very calm, confident, assured. Was it kind of going on for a good bit prior to when it came to a head? And if so, was football the main outlet you had up until that point?
Yeah, it's hard to know because like it just came out of nowhere. I was just at home one night. The very first time I experienced one, I was just at home one night with my wife Tracy, and it's just dread and just this fear comes over you. And I actually ended up in hospital the same night. My dad ended up bringing me, and I was tested for loads of things, and I ended up going up and being tested up in Dublin, and to put all the stuff on you, and I went on the treadmills and the heart monitors and everything like that, because I actually thought, I was convinced then there might have been an issue with my heart or something, because your heart just feels like it's coming out of your chest, but it's an awful feeling. It's hard to describe the feeling, Kevin. You just don't wish it on anybody, and the biggest problem you have when you experience that is that you're actually living in fear of it happening again, and it completely consumes you to a point until you go and you try and get a little bit of help for it. And I probably took a little bit longer than I should have gone and doing that, but I did do it. And once you realise what it is, then you can then start to take ownership of it, and you know the signs when there is one coming or anything. And often people have said, like, people say you're pretty outgoing and you're confident and you're this, that and the other, but that it can happen to anybody. It can literally happen to anybody, but the big thing is that you to take ownership of it rather than letting it control you, because if you let it control you, well, then there's a constant dread and a fear and everything like that. And probably for a few years playing football, that was in me, and it probably took a couple of years of football, some of my better years probably, in terms of, because the mindset is different. It's not longer a positive mindset, it's a negative mindset. I just, as I said to you, you know now these things, when they do happen to you, they will pass. That's all they are. They're not nice to experience. I very rarely, I'm in kind of control of them now, and you very rarely, I know the onsets of something's happening that exactly, you know, what to do. And the big thing is working on your breathing, and got a little bit of help obviously with my own doctor, and then I went to a lady and helped me with breathing and meditation and stuff like that, and that's definitely put me kind of, where the last 4 or 5 years has been far more positive. And now I've had a couple of episodes, but it happens, and again I go back to it, to come and go, you know.
Yeah, well, I can exclusively reveal you're actually talking to someone who's been there as well, and fully understands what you're talking about. It's absolutely horrible. And you mentioned you do a lot of running, 10Ks and stuff. That's probably the best form of medication on the market as far as I'm concerned, and I'm pretty sure you're probably with me on that one.
Yeah, it's just to get out, and I used to when you feel myself getting anxious, it's mad, I could get out of bed at maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, and you do sit-ups or press-ups, or you do something just to distract your mind from the fear entering it or whatever. So you're taking ownership of it rather than letting it manifest and ending up in a full-blown kind of panic attack. Do you know what I'm saying to you? But everybody deals with these things differently. Everybody does. Some people, it mightn't affect that seriously. Other people it will, and other people need to obviously go down the medication route. And listen, there's no one thing for all. It's what works for you. but the most important thing is to find what works for you. And as I said to you once, I kind of knew and said it's nothing more sinister, because as you probably know, when you experience them, they're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. It's hard to describe them, and there's nearly a heaviness that sits on your chest for maybe 3-4 days after them. That's just sitting there right in the center of your chest. And but again, they pass. These things pass, and just positivity is a big thing with it, huge thing.
You've got to want to fight it as well, Simon. I think that's the biggest thing. It takes a lot of energy, but it will equally take almost as much energy, if not more, if you don't fight it.
Oh, yeah, mentally it just drains you. Mentally it absolutely destroys you. But the number one thing, as you said, is that you to have that and basically what it is, and the more you look at it, is that it's a build-up of overuse of adrenaline, and your body effectively can't control it. And that's what it is. So, look, running helps. It does, obviously, time management and planning and stuff like that, in terms of if you're worried about stuff, that helps as well. Everybody's different. And everybody experiences them in different ways. But it's important to let people know that, like, it's okay. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like, it's okay to talk about it. I think enough of it is not really talked about. Like, I know a good few lads, my own friends that know all about it and stuff like that. And I don't mind mentioning it, because by me talking about it, one or two other people might relate to it, and they kind of say, look, Jesus, that worked, or this worked, or Jesus, it's good to hear somebody, that kind of way. So I think it's important to talk about it, because the more you talk, the more people might open up themselves,
Well, that's it. And I appreciate the fact that you've told your story, because it's not a story that I've ever told, and from working in media all through the years, I've never said it publicly or anything like that. But yeah, I do experience anxiety, and I'm still experiencing it to this day, and will continue to fight it. So yeah. I think even having the conversation is great for people to know that, look, it happens to everyone. You can live with it, you can continue to fight it, and as long as you're willing to do that, I think you'll always make inroads. But I'll bring it back to Carlow then. Is Carlow one of those guys that kind of helped you along the way? Obviously, you've got your family, you've got your friends, but in terms of getting back into what you love, which was obviously football, did Carlow kind of help ease you back in then during that period?
I did, yeah. Look, Turlow's probably had me since I was a young lad, developing up in the club, and so he knows every single player, and he builds up a really good relationship. Like, he's a brilliant man manager, and he's a brilliant communicator as well. To give him his credit, and he just his heart is just immersed in football, and in Eire Og, in Carlow, in every type of passion. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Carlow GA, everything. He gave his everything to anything he's ever done. So he knows me a long time, and he's put it this way, he's helped me more than once. He'll know what I'm referring to. I won't go into it in too much detail. So he's a really good man, and Tommy as well. Tommy's the same. Tommy's a really, really good man as well. So the both of them go well together.
He used to give you a bit of stick about the weight, I think, Tommy. Even when you're as lean as a butcher's dog, he used to love winding you up.
Oh, he still does. He still does. He met me. I met him in the truck there the other day, and he stopped me. I was coming down the Pres Road there running, and he stopped me and said to me, "You have a bit to go," So that's typical. that's typical Tommy Wogan. And I used to say to him, he had more clubs than Tiger Woods. He went and managed this club, that club. So.
I tell you good about Tommy. I happened to miss the Antrim game when Carlow got promoted back in 2018. I was in Krakow, but I got back, I think, that evening. But the next morning I brought up a chicken fillet roll, and I swear to God, he had the roll out quicker than what Bolt do 100 metres. So Tommy now, he loved that one.
He's some man to put food away, all right. Yeah, he's often been seen coming out Tesco's with a big sweets bag there. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What a man, a great man, a man of great time for along with Carlow, of course. So the victory over Pal in 2012 that broke a big duct, obviously, and then there was somewhat of a renaissance coming back towards 17, 18, 19. Eire Og win a 3 in a row, and it's kind of 17 and 18. You kind of really reinvented yourself as a footballer. You went from that free-flowing, free-scoring corner forward to what I would call a modern-day wing forward that gets up and down the field. What was the story with that transition? How did that come about?
I think you kind of have to adapt as a footballer and kind of, okay, what can I bring to the team now? And obviously, when you're playing inside, and again, once you kind of hit the far side of 30, there's no doubt about it. Pace does distinguish, and obviously with the history of hamstring injuries I've had, it distinguishes a lot faster as well. So you kind of have to say, okay, you have to look at it and say, I need to do something here, and I need to look at what I can bring to the team. And we were obviously developing a system, and Joe, I think I knew what I was getting. I know in my own head, I know what way forwards think, and I know what way to deliver a ball. I know what way I'd like a ball coming into me. So Joe probably trusted me a little bit more that I was prepared to do that role. It's kind of an unforgiving role. You're up and back, and it's not really for someone at 35, do you know what I'm saying to you, to be kind of up and back. But to be honest with you, I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Them couple of years, really, really liked it. Was enjoying the training again, back loving football again. Obviously, it helps too when you achieve something. And it was nice to achieve, a win with a lot of them new kind of younger lads coming through. Obviously, the likes of Jordan Morrissey and Ross Dunphy, they're great kids, great chaps, and them two in particular. But also, there's a few lads there, it was their first as well, you know what I'm saying to you. So it was great. It was really, really good. They've really shot on there in they've bolted on even last year there as well, so it's great. Long may it continue.
Yeah, and Eire Og reached the Leinster Final last year. Your own involvement then, obviously you were a noticeable absentee last year. What was the story?
Probably, look, Joe had ideas himself in terms of probably the way he was probably looking to kind of move things forward, and it's things kind of probably, opinions might change and stuff like that, and you mightn't be required or whatever, and probably a lack of dialogue between the two of us as well, and that happens. That's sport, and you move on from it. I was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken at the end of that Leinster Final, as much as anybody. You look back on it and said to yourself, if, buts, what's, bottom line is, wasn't a part of it, but I was heartbroken. And I just felt for the group of players because they invested so much in it. The whole team did, and they were if your man, I think Egan's shot doesn't go over the bar that time, and where he shoots from it, that doesn't go over the bar. I think Eire Og are Leinster champions, so it's fine margins. Do you know what I'm saying to you? But I did, people have asked me, were you disappointed, or were you not to be this? It wasn't really, Kevin, no, because when you're away from it, you're away from it, and then when you're involved in it, you're completely involved in it. Do you know what I'm saying to you? And it's gas. It's only that we have this bit of free time now, you realise how much time you're actually investing in it. So I enjoyed last year. I got to spend loads of time with the kids. They're grown, and that's time you don't get back. Do you know what I'm saying to you? So as I said to you, I was devastated as an Eire Og supporter and former player, whatever you want to call it, for them lads on that day, because I was part of that journey with them, and that's the way you have to look at it as well. You were part of that leading up to that time, and just because you weren't on the field with them doesn't mean that you weren't more part of it, because you spent 2 or 3 years getting there with them. You trained with them. We won a couple of championships together. But the bottom line is, I was really, really heartbroken as an Eire Og person for that group of players, because I'm still close to a lot of them. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Still close. I've actually 3 children, Caden, Sophia, and then my eldest is Sean Gannon, because I'm always minding him anywhere we go. So, and there's a lot of people that vouch for that. Like Carlow's always put me together with him because he needs a lot of minding, you know.
Brand ambassador, of course, over in Otway as well, where you've been working for so long. But just if you don't mind me asking, there's probably a difference of opinions, I guess, with Joe Murphy. Did you feel like you could have went on perhaps that extra year?
Yeah, look, I felt in terms of the way I was playing and the way in terms of, and as well as that too, you're wise enough to know you're getting on as well. Do you know what I'm saying to you? And you don't want to be stopping any development once you get to a certain age too. But I felt I was part of it, and I played a lot of games over the last couple of years. But probably just goes back to dialogue. And Joe is not that type of person either. And look, I'm pretty stubborn as well. So there was no real dialogue between the two of us, and that happens. Stuff like that happens. And
it's just strange to think how much it could change in a matter of months almost, because you're a central figure in those two victories, and then all of a sudden, I mean, what's a few months? You know what I'm trying to say to you? Like, you're 38 now, and I get that, but it just seems bizarre from the outside in.
Yeah, well, no, I'm 37. I'm not the 38. So, but it's
heading towards that way. Yeah.
A couple of years time, I think. Yeah. Look, that's kind of my outlook on it, and look, that happens. That happens. There was obviously, again, there was a change in Eire Og style last year. There were probably a little bit more. They're still counter-attacking, but there was a lot more energy. But I look back on it too and say, there was no Murta Ware there last year, who for me was a bigger loss than anything. I'm convinced if we had Murta just as an option, because he was after having a good year full forward the previous year, and that's the difference. Like, Ballyboden had a bench, and we probably didn't have the extra couple of lads needed to kind of bring on and close out the game. But no, I'm back with the intermediates this year anyway. So I'm looking forward to out doing a bit of training, and looking forward to seeing what that brings.
Absolutely. Well, in the meantime, I've asked you to do a bit of homework, like we have done with all the guests so far on the series. We've asked our guests to pick the best 15 that they have played with at whatever level, schools, Leinster in your case, county, club, out in the back garden, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the curveball is you got to include yourself. Lads hate that.
I don't like that bit of it at all. Let's be honest with you.
It's amazing how quickly everyone becomes modest.
yeah. Well, it allows you to fit somebody else in, and that's the other side of it as well. But so look, I'll give you just a little bit of assertion first. I've tried to base it based most on who I've played with a lot and for a number of years, and who've been consistent as well. You know what I'm saying to you? With club as well. And there's a lot of people that lose out as well. But no, I think nearly everybody on the list has probably played county anyway at some stage. But I was debating Sausage and James Clark. They were my keepers, like one of the keepers anyway. I mean, like, Sausage was just brilliant. Clarkey was an all-around brilliant keeper as well. But I just probably have to edge it to Sausage. I mean, he'd a wonderful left foot on him, and he was a great communicator as well. But Clarkey, look, there's nothing between them. Played a lot with James as well, and an absolute gentleman. A different day I could say James, but going with Sausage anyway in a goal. Right corner back, Benny Kavanagh. Benny obviously speaks for himself. He's after having a great 8-9 years there. Like, Benny, I was just thinking back and looking at it there. He came on, I think he started coming on to the Eire Og team around 10-11. So he's after having a great kind of decade as well. And he got to represent Carlow, played for Leinster as well. So he's a super player. He's great on the ball, a great reader of the game. Full back, Brian Farrell had unbelievable tussles with him down through the years. Some he's got the better of, some I've got the better of, but he was just a brilliant, consistent back for club and county. An excellent, and he's as hard as nails as well. So he's full back. Now, if you want to add anything in, don't be afraid to stop me there. Cornerback, another club mate of mine. You'll see there's a bit of loyalty to a lot of lads here anyway, but Vinny Kavanagh. And the reason I have Vinny in there is that I played a huge amount of football with Vinny, but I just loved his attitude. And he had a serious injury himself he came back from, but he just was just absolutely go for every ball. He was a great talker. He liked a little bit of banter between, a little bit of sledging as well. He was fond of it, and he was immense that day in 2005. And I played up with Vinny the whole way up along, and a very, very underrated footballer. So have Vinny, like, look, to be honest with you, I'm going back to the half back line here now. Like, I tried to pick kind of 2 or 3 lads in each position and kind of went with, that's the way I did it anyway. Other half back line starting off anyway, I have Christy Bulger. Christy was just a leader. Simple as that. I don't really have to say too much about him. Set the tone in training, set the tone in the matches, and great communicator. Obviously, the minor team is lucky to have him at the moment there. He's a great lad, super lad as well to go with it. Centre back of Corcoran McCarthy. Mac, again, like him and Christy are probably cut with one stone. Great fella. A good lad. Always could go to him for a bit of advice or a chat, or any time you want to talk about anything. He was just brilliant, but just a hardy fella too that sets the tone, and leader as well. Then the other wing back, it was really between John Hayden and Joe Byrne, and I went with John Hayden. Joe probably will never speak to me again, but sure. Anyway, he doesn't really speak to you anyway, so he's all right. But I went with John.
I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to jump in for a second here, because obviously on the podcast previously we've had Paul Kelly from Kildavin, and Paul was trying to pull a fast one and try to get away with not putting himself on the team, despite the fact that I stressed that he had to. So obviously during the podcast he makes a late change and he takes out Joe Byrne. Justice for Joe. We'll get a hashtag going.
Joe was a great footballer. You don't have to say.
Brilliant footballer.
He was a brilliant footballer, and great for county and for club. Absolutely brilliant footballer. He doesn't need anybody to tell him that, to be honest with you. So, but John was just. I played a good bit of football with John and had the unfortunate of playing against him a good few times as well. But John was, and off the field as well, John is a great fella. A really, really nice fella. You can have a conversation with him. No nonsense with him. Great trainer. He's just a nice all-around fella, and very consistent for club and county. I have to say, Paul Cashin probably is unlucky to lose out there. Paul was an excellent footballer as well. Again, these things, you're picking a team tomorrow, you have maybe different lads there. Everything is subjective, to be honest with you, Kevin. So it's this was just what I was feeling at the time. Midfield is Sean Gannon and Jody Morrissey. Now,
what combo!
I've picked this team based on putting lads in their best positions that and I'm going to discuss. I haven't. It's not like the All Stars where I've put, Eric McCormack corner back just to get in the team, or or someone like Johnny Nevin centre back. I've picked this team solely on look. I've played with Brendan Murphy and Thomas Walsh, right? But I just don't think. To me personally, I have Gannon and Morrissey ahead of the two of them. Now, other people might disagree with that. That's fine. That's what it's about. That's about opinions and obviously the lads have different strengths that Jody and Sean don't have. But in terms of being up close and personal to them two lads, like Morrissey, just what can you not say about him? I mean, his spatial awareness, the way he could turn out with trouble, his sleight of pass, or his weight on his pass, in terms of you always knew it was just going to hop before it came into you. He made you look probably better than you were. That's I can't pay him a better compliment than that. He was a brilliant footballer. And Sean has been really outstanding. He's after having a great couple of years, and he's after turning into a fine leader for Eire Og under my tutelage, in terms of minding him up the whole way along and fathering him, and he. But no, it's on all joking aside, he's what else can you say? Again, I think that's a really, really good midfield partnership. Yeah, the two boys, like Tom Welch might have been in it, but he fecked off to Wicklow, so forget about Tom now. But yeah, look, that's them two. Moving on to the half forward line, I've gone Brian Carberry wing forward. I've gone Johnny Nevin centre forward, and I've gone Mark Carpenter on there. And look, again, that's a serious half forward line as well. I mean, them three players. Brian was a really, really good player, and Johnny is Johnny. You might never get a pass off him, but what he done for Carlow, he always delivered. And I probably played.
There's a great balance to that half forward line actually as well, because you got Carberry obviously with the left foot.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, Johnny with both feet, and then Mark. But you do, yeah. Like the two, like. Carpenter was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant, and the pace he had. But what people don't know as well is that he had this strength that if you got really close to him, he was able to shrug you off. He was brilliant, and another great man to buy a free too. I've been lucky enough to get. I used to always say, when you're attacking, go down my side. So I'm always kicking in from the right, Mark. Good man yourself. So he was good at that. He was good at that. So yeah, I think that's a. I think it's a good half forward line.
Definitely.
It's there's other lads I've played with club wise, and there's other lads I've played. Look, Pat Hickey. Pat was a brilliant footballer. But again, I tell you, the great brain. He was strong as an ox as well. He could fend lads off and get a score as well. I loved great time for Pat. He's a really, really good footballer. You're going down through it as well. Look, JJ Smith was a very, very good footballer as well. Brian Murphy from Rathvilly, their lads probably lucky to lose out as well. And anyway, going into the full forward line, I have myself, not that I wanted myself there or anything like that, and I have Skeoch and I have Eric McCormack. So that's the full forward line. Skeoch had many a huge game for Carlow. Huge games for Carlow, always played well for Carlow, and a great servant to Pal as well. And to be fair to him, after that horrific injury he had as well, came back and performed a really, really good level as well. So a lot of respect for Skeoch. He's a good fella as well, off the field, and often enjoyed an old nice point or two with him. And then Slick, I don't think there was too many better natural finishers around than Eric. In his time, he was just clinical, absolutely clinical, and always had that composure. You always just knew, it's not that you knew, you expected it. Now, it might be a bit controversial having two left footers in on the far side. Now, look, there's a few I've left out. Like, I played with Willie Quinlan for a couple of years, but I tried to base on lads I played the most with. Like Willie would be in any team, to be honest with you. So Willie won't mind me saying that. There's a few others as well, again, that I'd have Brendan Hayden probably. I played a couple of seasons with him as well, and like stuff like that as well. But I'm just basing it on lads I played the most amount of time with. That's the only thing to balance. Slick is a bit like myself, but I can kick a few with his right as well, so he's all right. So, but look, as I said to you, I think you sit down tomorrow and you might pick a couple of different lads there, but that's trying to be as fair as I can and looking at it from back in that time, people look at it and might disagree with it. That's fine. I might look at it tomorrow and say, what were you thinking? That's fine too. So, but sure, it's a bit of crack too, and I'm sure once it goes out, I get a couple of phone calls.
Yes, another fantastic team picked, and another fantastic story. I'd like to thank Simon for being incredibly brave and telling the story publicly. It's something that wasn't on the agenda for the interview, but happened during the story naturally. It's also a good time to point out that if you are struggling at all, please do have a chat with someone. And a recommendation I would have is to try and exercise, because on a personal level, I can say it really does help, and Simon vouches for that, as you would have heard during the interview as well. Again, thanks to all who've got in touch with me about the podcast so far. It's great to see all that positive feedback, and the ratings on Apple Podcasts are helping too. Don't forget, when you hit the 5 stars, your name doesn't actually show up. It's only if you leave a review. So, as the fella said, don't be afraid of it. That's it for today's show. My thanks to Simon Rea once again, and thanks to our sponsors, Corcoran Precast Tanks. We do it all again next Monday with episode 6 of My Time in the Geansaí here on the Left Wing Back podcast. Until then, stay safe and take care.